Could anyone please comment on the stickies you put on the screen? So who put the pink ones on the screen?
I did.
Go ahead, comment.
I said, the game for deleting, I think it was too long. The pictures were appearing really slow, so it was, or maybe I'm just impatient. I don't know, but I thought it was like the game was like a really too slow and it took too long. That was for deleting, and then activities were set before the MFP, and they were not giving a clear introduction to what the TL was.
What the text
And
was,
that's
you
it.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it you that said, I think the text goes first?
No, but I do think so. I wasn't the one that said that.
Who said that? Who said
Teacher, I posted all my stickies here
Okay.
on the right. Yeah.
Right. Alitzel, please go ahead and comment.
Yeah, with all my partners, I did the same, so I cannot adjust them. So for you, Yvonne, I think that it was a good leading, but I think you try to do lots of activities, maybe one or two. And also we were students, but I think with beginners doesn't work because it takes more time. For example, if you try to explain Yolanda, it takes you lots of time. Yeah, so I think try to make it easier. Also, I think text goes first after deleting.
Very good, yes.
Try to follow the structure, meaning, form, and pronunciation. For example, you mentioned, I don't know where. Oh, well, you mentioned the form, the structure, but then you skip text, and it is missing meaning and form. There is no freer practice. And I know that it is hard to finish all the stages on time, but try to manage your time. I think it happens for everybody. It happened for everybody, but I think you can do it. So I enjoy your lesson. That's all for me.
Thank you. Great feedback, Alitzel. Does anyone else have any comments before I give comments?
In my case, I don't really realize when she introduced the target language, so I think that part it wasn't clear.
Yeah. And what was the target language? Can you remember?
She was talking about millionaires' habits, and the structure was for present simple, but with WH questions, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that confused me a little bit, because I was wondering if it was it just the affirmative she was interested in? Just the affirmative, or was she going to focus on questions? And I think for time purposes, she should have just focused on the questions because that was the teaching practice point. All right. So yeah, I think she could have saved time at various stages. Like, for example, in the lead-in took longer than necessary. Possibly she could have done that quicker on a whiteboard open class than doing it the way she did. And some of the questions were kind of obvious. Are they famous businessmen? Do they have money? Yeah, I mean, almost all of them do. so it was taking a bit too slow to get started. Then the text, as you mentioned, came at the end rather than, it should come right after the lead in, right? So she had some questions about the text, but they needed to be asked like early on in the gist. Then after the gist questions are answered, she gets them to notice the target language in the text. In this case would be WH questions, because it was a dialogue, so they were asking questions. She could perhaps have had Yvonne, perhaps you could have had a table so that they could put the parts of speech in the table. The students themselves, instead of doing a lot of the explanation, right? So try to avoid explaining a lot during the language clarification. The students could fill out a table with parts of speech found in questions, like the auxiliary verb, right? The subject. So you've got to consider, what is the problem with lots of teacher talking, especially at elementary level? Well, the students are just not going to understand it. It's going to go over their heads, right? So you try and get them involved. It was useful to have a student-centered categorizing activity on the Jamboard, but I couldn't see the aim. Was it to prepare them for the text? What about pronunciation? Like intonation or stress on the content words in questions? I thought the meaning clarification was okay, so that was one of the better issues. Word wall activities for control practice, that was okay. It was contextualized and they manipulated the form and the meaning together, so that was pretty okay. And that there was like lacking a freer practice. There's no freer practice, as you mentioned. So you're not really following closely the text-based framework. You're kind of making it up according to how you think it's done. Yeah. So Yvonne, I think you need to review the text-based language framework. But the fact was, though, that you did provide some clarification and practice with the language, so I think it's a pass. Now, let's move on to Lupe. Lupe, can you tell us what was good about your teaching today? What did you dislike?
I dislike, not that my students weren't good today, but it was a lot easier for me to give the class with
Right.
with my teachers here with me.
Yeah.
So that was not a challenge. I would have liked a challenge. So yeah, what else? I enjoyed the lesson plan and learning about the this new framework that we had. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Right. Who wrote the pink? Who wrote the pink sticky? Presentation format is very formal and well done. Who wrote that? Maybe that was Yvonne. Elitzel, please share with us your comments.
I will start with my comments, Lupita. I think the leading was fast, so that was really good. Also, you included the text. I think it was great because you pointed out the target language when you highlight with yellow, I think. I think it was a good structure talking about MFP to cover all stages. Also, you use CCQs. That was good. You included CP, LP, and FP. I think in all of the exercises, you include an example to know students what have to do. And I think all your material was good, was clear and clean. So that was I like it the most because you used beautiful material, and I center all my attention for that. So also I enjoyed your lesson, and that's it.
Thank you, Alex.
Wow, really good feedback from Alitel. So, yeah, I like that there was a clear lead-in linked to the text. Possibly you needed one or two simple gist questions for overall comprehension of the text before starting, to look at the target language contained within it. But you had a very nice text. It was very clear to read it, and it was. I noticed you had the language in the text underlined. That was good. So that's what we're looking for in the text-based framework. We want them to get to notice the language in the text. However, you might consider that once they've done the gist, it might be a good idea to quickly concept check pronouns and then get them to underline the pronouns in the text. I think you explained the language in terms of meaning form quite well, but try to avoid explaining a lot during the language clarification. Ask more questions, set tasks, and elicit. So you could have the rules of use written on the board. We use object pronouns to refer to people, objects, blah, and maybe put a false one in there, right? So they have to circle the correct rules themselves. Yeah, that's a more effective way of checking that they understand. You know, if they have to circle the correct rules. And it simply all you have to do, guys, is use the activities in the course book. That's what they're there for. Yeah. We're not seeing enough of that. You're trying to be too clever. Try to use the way the course book does it, because they're often a good, well-designed guided discovery activities. Right? Also, what's the rule regarding stress? Yeah, and in your pronunciation. So we might stress it when it's referencing a noun mentioned earlier. Right? So then get the students to underline and stress the pronouns if they're referring back to something earlier. Useful and suitable control practice. I thought it was easy to apply that activity, and the students could do it themselves on the slide, so that was very good. The freer practice is personalizable. Could you make it more communicative? Could you tell a partner about a friend's likes and dislikes? Then they have to make notes and report back using pronouns. That might make it a bit more sort of communicative and less sort of language practicey. Yeah, because in the fluency practice, the freer practice, we need it more of a communicative, personalizable, purposeful type activity, and not just language practice for the sake of it. Yeah. Yeah, but it was okay. It was okay. Yeah, because at least they were personalizing a bit, so that was something, wasn't it? Yeah? So overall, I think no, it's a strongish pass. Well done, because you obviously thought about the text-based framework, and you had a clear text at the beginning of the lesson. You had clarification, and you're moving towards practice, freer practice. So it shows that you have a good understanding there. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Tanya, can you tell us what you think were the strengths and areas of improvement for your lesson?
Yeah, as Lupita said, I think it was simple. Well, easy to teach my colleagues because it was very quickly. If were there the students, I wasn't going to share the crossword activity because it was too long for them and it will take too much time to do it. So, and that's it.
Can you just tell us what your target language was in this lesson?
Sorry, what?
What was the target language in this lesson?
Food and drink.
Not really. It was countable and uncountable nouns, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to put the countable and uncountable nouns because actually my target language it was about lexis.
Let's have a
I
look.
have and I have to put countable and uncountable nouns about
right.
food and drink.
Okay. Well,
Course.
while I find that, just to check, could anyone comment on the stickies? If not, we'll go straight to Alitzel. She always writes really good feedback.
Yes, please.
Alitzel, we need
Yeah.
you. Okay, yeah,
I
just say
think
food and drink.
first
Yeah.
of all, I think the leading was fast. That was very good. But but I think with our students, it could be no, it was a good leading, but only remind the students to take a picture. You didn't mention it, and I took the picture, but as Lupita said after, she hadn't anything to work with. So I think that's also just a reminder. Also, I think that text comes first. It could be better to structure your meaning, form, and pronunciation. I don't remember if we did all that stages. And also, I like that students participate a lot. You ask students to participate a lot reading, and that was very good. With beginners, I got confused in this. With beginners, it is difficult to do an activity where you have to make sentences. In the activity where it was singular into plural, but you didn't specify the structure if it was affirmative, a question, and I got just a little lost doing that. And with the last activity, food and drink vocabulary, even was very hard for me. There are words unknown from the presentation. It was good because you show us lots of new vocabulary, but talking about this activity, I didn't find the correct words, and I think that only got 3 from 8 points. So it was very difficult. I don't know my partners. And the last, I think following a structure, meaning, form, and pronunciation would help you. And I couldn't identify the controlled practice and lesser practice. But the activities were great. I enjoyed your lesson, Tania. Thank you, teacher.
Yes, great feedback
Thank
as
you.
usual. And I agree with those points. I liked your activities, yes. But First of all, the lead in, some students had difficulty remembering the questions. I think what would be useful, Tanya, is if you did some of this on slides, Google Slides, and shared the link, right? Rather than keep asking students to take photographs, because some of them don't always know how to do screenshots and so on. The best and most accessible way is to share the slide in chat, I think. Also things like times, it was getting slow at the close, coming to the end of these breakout room activities. So reduce the settings on the breakout room so it closes in 10 seconds. I was a bit confused about what your text was and why they were asking about prices. That doesn't really, it's not really relevant to the target language, because the target language was the vocabulary of the food. Yeah. So you might have had to ask questions about still or sparkling, Neapolitan, pounds and pence, right? So you need to do that earlier rather than later with the crossword. So it might have been made more sense to do the crossword earlier. And then maybe for your freer practice, then you could do a little role play that involves waiters taking orders, right? For which you might have to say, you might have to teach them a little bit of language for requests and so on. Can I have a Neapolitan pizza? Yeah. What is a Neapolitan pizza exactly? I'm not sure. Pronunciation. Well, I think you needed to actually try and teach what was in the course book materials a bit more. Yeah, because it's all there, just you're not teaching it. Maybe it's because you don't know how, or you didn't notice that it was at the back of the book, right? So things like biscuits for the pronunciation there, sausages, vegetables. Students have problems with these consonant clusters, right? Especially at the end of words, Spanish speakers. Bulls, vegetables, yeah, sausages, biscuits, yeah. And it would have made sense, I think, to focus a little bit on countable and uncountables to give it a bit more challenge, because students need to come away from the lesson feeling that they've learned something. Yeah, I didn't feel that there was that much new or being taught in this lesson. Yeah, so I was trying to make things a bit more like they feel like they're learning something. Okay, that's a bit more challenging for you as a teacher, but that's our job. What else can we point out? Yes. Try and make practice more controlled and challenging. So you said make sentences or questions. You know, it leaves it very open for the students. Right? It's a bit vague, the instruction. They can do absolutely anything. Yeah. Just why there was no form checking. Question like a statement like this: he drinks milk every day. Questions to the students: why is there no article there? Right. Orange juice is served. Why do we use a singular verb? Because it's an uncountable noun. Okay, so Let's push them a bit, give them more challenge. Don't be afraid to do that as a teacher. Yeah. And then your students will come back and say you're a good teacher because you're pushing them. That makes sense? Right. I
Yes.
think it's 18:44 now. I think we should take a break until 7 o'clock. And when we come back, I'm going to give some guided lesson planning advice to Alitzel, Melissa, and Angel. Okay, and then we'll have a little bit of review about how to teach speaking and how to teach writing. Right? And it's going to be in the form of questions to you. Yeah.
Okay.
What's good to do in a speaking lesson? What's good to do in a writing lesson? Okay. But well done, everyone, today. Well done to Lupita, Ivonne, and Tania. You've all passed. There's enough there in your lessons to get passes, yeah? So let's come back at 15 minutes, yeah? Maybe we can finish a little earlier tonight because it's the holidays. But we do need to do the guided lesson planning.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
So see you at 7, right?